Greetings, everyone. My name is Bali Chiranda, Infection Control Specialist at Clorox Pro. Hopefully, you're having a phenomenal conference, and I'm looking forward to just sharing with you today a new method for surface disinfection. I'm going to go over a couple of slides, just really getting you into the real substantive material about what electrostatic is, as you might have come across it over the last little while in your work and in your workspaces or anywhere else. So let's talk about disinfecting. Disinfecting right now is a very important process. It's normally done as a way to eliminate the environment as a source of infection. And people typically do a couple of different things to disinfect. Either they use wipes, or they use ready-to-use trigger sprays, or they use the conventional mop and bucket as a way to disinfect. By that, they use dilutable disinfectants. Despite all these methods, healthcare facilities and many other areas have really published in the literature that you will miss up to 50% of the surface in a typical disinfecting space. So that becomes now important to think about, hey, how else can I bring in other technology and other items to disinfect? And I believe that is the unique space where electrostatic plays a role, where you're now compensating for some human error. So I'll talk about that over the next couple of slides and really just provide you some consideration of what you need to think about when you need to select an electrostatic device. As I said, these are now commonly found everywhere, so it becomes very important for all you conference attendees to have a firm understanding. So I'll speak to that over the next couple of slides. So electrostatic technology itself has been around for a while. There's been so many ways in which it has been used, and I'll speak a bit to those. And I'll also tell you how it's now been adopted into the space of disinfection and how that can play a role. So that'll be a key part of this as well. So as you can see from the imagery, these are some of the industries that have adopted electrostatic for various reasons, as you can imagine. But this has been done over many, many years, allowing the novelty of electrostatic in this space to be tested, evaluated, and proven to be safe. Some of the places where electrostatic has really, really been used is agriculture. As you can imagine, when you're applying pesticides, you want to make sure both the top and the bottom of the plant are actually covered in the necessary pesticide that you're using. So that additional coverage becomes an important thing. In automotive painting, such as cars, tanning industry, and inkjet printing, all these industries have definitely used the advantages of electrostatic, which is the superiority of applying that chemistry in a way that it gets to every single nook and cranny. So that becomes something that's very important as you're looking to that. And that is really the reason why electrostatic is now borrowed into, say, another industry for disinfection and making sure environments are safe. So how does it work? This is a question that comes up a lot. I hear this a lot from many people that I talk to in my travels around the country, around the world, talking about electrostatic. But the main thing that you really have to understand and appreciate here is the nozzle, or the place where the chemistry comes out, is the most important part of the technology. Because at that part of the technology, that is where every single droplet of chemistry becomes individually charged through electrostatic technology, similar to the magnets that you might have played with as a kid, or if you did some physics in school, then you might have actually done that in science or physics. Essentially, every droplet then gets negatively charged, allowing it, as it comes out of the device, to now attract to many different surfaces with a force greater than gravity. And each droplet lends uniformly to cover over, under, and below. So in the example of this, what you can see here, in the wheelchair example, the wheelchair is completely enveloped in the electrostatic chemistry that is being used there, and nothing gets to linger in the air. So when people walk into that space, they're not smelling it, they're not feeling it. It's actually really covering only the surfaces that you really want to get disinfection on. So this becomes a very important part of electrostatic, and this is really what makes a lot of people gravitate towards that. As you can see, this provides you now a new way to spray. Before, people were using trigger sprays and pump sprays. Those are mechanical. People have to pump it. They have to do all sorts of work. The unfortunate part is, with the requirement to disinfect and clean so many surfaces nowadays, people end up having shoulder pain, back pain, and so on. So an ergonomic advantage of the electrostatic is that trigger is the button push. So you push once, the chemistry then runs out, and then it applies in a uniform way, and you're using very little chemistry. So all this then gives you that significant advantage. So it is definitely a new way to apply disinfectants compared to the old traditional way of doing things. This is actually a thing I always say is very lovely to see. Like, it's a very lovely way to compare how electrostatic actually applies in a uniform manner. And this is a good way for you as a stakeholder to evaluate whether your electrostatic device is actually performing well or not. And this image here shows you a globe, a light bulbs, or so to speak. And in this case, a fluorescent dye was used through a trigger spray, through a mister, and through an electrostatic. And as you can see from left to right, the one that had the most uniform coverage, most robust, most coverage everywhere is the electrostatic. Whereas the trigger spray, which is what's most commonly used, just splattered on the left there of the light bulb and nothing was on the right. As you can imagine, if you're dealing with pathogens that really rely on the environment, such as norovirus that causes your stomach flu, or if you're dealing with things like C. difficile in hospitals, or even things like COVID, pandemics, things like SARS-CoV-2, you then end up having problems of people now touching a surface that might have been missed and as an opportunity for disinfecting through these times. So you definitely want to make sure that you're covering every nook and cranny, and electrostatic definitely does that. This is how electrostatic compares, as I said, compared to the other technologies that you'll see there. You hear people say fogging and misting to refer to electrostatic. That's actually not the case, because a fogger and a mister actually does something different. So if you can see, this is actually a bar showing you how big the droplets are, with the smallest droplets being actually in the fogger and mister. And these foggers and misters actually also require vents to be sealed, and they have longer re-entry times. And what that means is when the device is switched off, you can't automatically enter the space. You've got to wait a little bit longer. Whereas in the electrostatic, you don't have to do that. As soon as the device is switched off, boom, you're ready to go. And each of the droplets doesn't linger in the air. Whereas these two situations, which is the foggers and misters and trigger and pump sprays, they linger in the air. So electrostatic then gives you a unique advantage in terms of performance. Where can you use this technology? Anywhere in the healthcare setting for sure. In retail settings, we've used it. We've used it in schools, hospitals, multiple long-term care homes. The important thing is anywhere where you have a large space that is difficult to disinfect. Anywhere where you have portable equipment that's used in between patients, in between people, that kind of thing. All these areas become an important area where you can actually apply your electrostatic disinfection protocols. Let's talk a bit about some of the things you want to think about. You definitely want to think about the design, right? How is the device designed? As you can see behind me, I've got a backpack, and I've also got a cart, and I've also got a handheld. These are some of the ways you want to think about what is best for you. Do you want a handheld? Do you want a backpack? Do you want a cart? Those are the different things to think about. In addition, what is the chemistry you want to use? This is important because certain pathogens are more difficult to kill. So you need to actually now go into your Health Canada list of approved products and then choose the one that you have that has the necessary contact time, necessary efficacy, and can also be used with your technology. Last but not least, you want to look at your safety. What is the consideration there? Is it eyewear that's required? Is it a whole bunch of other things? Is your technology approved for use in Canada through the UL certification or other Intertech or other bodies such as CSA? So you've got to think about that as you're deciding on your technology. As you go deeper, you ask yourself, do you want it corded or do you want it cordless? And each of these has got its advantages and disadvantages, ranging from corded being able to give you a much steadier charge, thereby a steadier electrostatic and a better full coverage. Whereas on the battery powered, you've got the advantage of portability. You can go up and down stairs. You can go anywhere where there's no power. So all these become something that you now need to think about. You also have to think about, are you using ready-to-use solutions which have the right concentration every time? Or are you using dilutable solutions which you might need to use a test strip to verify if it's actually working? All those become important consideration as you're looking to choose your technology. Once again, corded and battery powered, each of them has got their advantages and disadvantages. In the corded case, you have a consistent droplet charge because the power coming out of the power cord is actually steady and it doesn't drop. It's got uniform surface coverage. You get good rep, but then you're compromised a little bit on the portability and the ergonomics. Whereas on the battery powered, you have a couple of negatives, but then you have a benefit now that comes from being portable. But it might be heavy sometimes in the form of backpacks, or it might be heavy on the wrist in the case of handhelds. So that becomes something that you also have to think about. Surface coverage, I've talked a bit about this. You will see that there might be a better coverage on the corded versus the battery powered. And this is something that I'll also say, reach out to your vendor, reach out to your partner that you're working with on electrostatic selection and ask them to show you through fluorescent the differences in coverage. This becomes a very good way for you to engage all your staff in terms of the benefits of electrostatic. So challenge your end user, challenge your stakeholder, challenge your vendor to actually show you this so that you can then be able to get a very good position and understanding about what this is looking like. As you look further, design is important. The technology needs to be matched with the chemistry and the operator. So you look at it more than just the device itself. It's a system. It's the solutions that you're using, and it's also how the worker is using it. So all this needs to be thought about together. And in addition to this, you have to then think about whether the pairing, whether it's actually approved through US EPA, through Health Canada, through all those necessary bodies. But you definitely want to make sure that you're meeting all those requirements. Safety is also important for the worker. So look at your safety data sheet. Does it have this dermal skin exposure? Is there anything related to the lung exposure? Is there operator personal protective equipment? Can you meet the personal protective equipment required? And also, last but not least, is there a re-entry time and can you actually meet that? So that becomes something that is important. In closing down, really, what you want to also look at is that electrostatic definitely can be used in a whole bunch of places, from retail, transportation, education, hospitality, and healthcare. So it becomes something that you can definitely incorporate. So I urge you to reach out to one of your people that has this. And if there's any questions, feel free to reach out to me through phone or through message. Ultimately, this is definitely something that you can use and incorporate into your disinfection needs. And feel free to reach out at any point in time. Thank you for the opportunity and enjoy the conference.